These are the Benedictine nuns of Minster, 12 sisters dedicated to a life of work, prayer and contemplation that rarely takes them beyond the 14-acre boundary of Minster Abbey. This is an enclosed order, which means that only in exceptional circumstances can any of them venture out. To anyone venturing in, it seems almost like another world, but it's one where life doesn't quite all revolve around the chapel. For Sister Ancilla, the tractor and plough is as much a part of day-to-day routine as the prayer book. At Minster, they pride themselves on being a self-sufficient community, who live totally from what they grow and rear on their farm in the grounds of the Abbey. Any doubtful thoughts about women doing men's work in this environment are considered irrelevant, but just the same, it's not every day you see a nun driving a tractor.
Well, we do it because we have to earn a living. There were a group of Bavarian sisters who came here who'd been farming all their life, for generations and generations, and they taught us how to work the land here. And then we've sort of modernized a bit, and picked up a few tips on the way from Farmers Weekly and that sort of thing. We managed to make it economic because we grow everything ourselves. If we'd had to start buying in anything, hay or straw or feed stuff for the cows, it wouldn't be economic at all. It's a lot easier now than it was because we've got more machines and we've got a sort of more streamlined, better organisation. And we've got more break periods. So I don't feel it too hard now at all, except in the winter. It's great satisfaction working with nature, enjoyment, I don't know, it's a broad term, isn't it? But working with nature, it's a very balanced sort of life. With our reading and the choir, you need something physical and also the mental relaxation. And there is something about working with nature that brings one down to earth and keeps one there,
Woot, woot, woot. Come on. Come on. Chippy. Chip, chip, chip. Come on. Woot, woot, woot.
Much of the crop at Minster, things like barley, mangolds and beetroot, is grown to feed the livestock. The farm is basically geared for dairy produce. A small herd of 10 Jersey cows yield on average about 20 gallons a day. The income from milk and eggs sold outside is small by really commercial standards, but every little helps to keep things going. Sister Patricia and Sister Augustina are responsible for this department, and it wasn't always as quick and straightforward as this. The one thing you certainly notice about this farm, there's no shortage of the right equipment. Most of it may be second-hand, but it's all there. When it's decided something is needed, the money will be found. That's careful management, they tell you, with perhaps a little extra help besides. As the approach of winter means less and less time can be spent in the fields, more time is devoted to the workshop. Sister Ancilla swaps her tractor for the lathe and settles down to her favourite craft. All her woodwork, mainly plates and bowls, is sold to visitors who come to the Abbey. Her work is in great demand and she can never make enough. It's time, too, for some carpentry. Farm implements forever need replacing. The rakes, for instance, continually seem to be breaking, but Sister Augustina makes sure there's always a good supply. A German, she came here 5 years ago, after spending some time at a monastery in America. She loves the life at Minster and says she's never been happier.
I think it's unique, but it is a setup which is typically Benedictine, only that the other Benedictines got away from it, and we are about the only one for women, certainly, but there are very few for men too who just live this this way of life we have here with the farm and self-supporting. I think our main aim is just that we have a prayer life, and then we work for our living, which is mainly the farm and the guest house and some handicrafts and art and so on, showing around visitors. But with all that, we try to live a good Christian life and possibly spread it a little if we can. Sometimes you think it's nothing, and sometimes you are amazed what people take away from this place.
At Minster, they like to think they pursue their ideal, living as the perfect commune. All for one and one for all. That's a principle which found its roots in these parts more than 1,300 years ago, when the first monastery for nuns was built here. It was later burnt to the ground by the Danes and all the occupants perished. The present Minster Abbey is a mixture of Saxon and Norman, and enjoys the distinction today of being the oldest occupied building in England. But it hasn't always been lived in by a religious order. The abbey was in fact a private home for some 400 years, until a group of Bavarian nuns escaping from Nazism took over and returned the abbey to its original status in 1936.
Of course, there was no income, and without money you can't live. So our fellow sisters in America had to help so long until Minster could be put on its own feet. But that was very difficult. For example, the two sisters who worked the farm had they had nothing. They did the first field with a rake and a spade, because they had no machines and nothing, and no money. And then they had a little plow and a pony, and with that the agriculture did go a little better. And afterwards, of course, it was all the time more developed and more developed. Nowadays we have not an old pony anymore, but 2 to 3 tractors and sisters to drive them, and so.
One sister you'll rarely find driving a tractor is Sister Concordia. She devotes most of her time to sculpture. She developed her talent at Art College in Edinburgh and then decided to take her vows. Now, in the peace and quiet of Minster, her work carries on, and the results of it can be seen in churches, cathedrals and halls all over the world. This particular job, however, is destined for much nearer home.
This is St. George and the Dragon, and our bishop, Cyril of Southwark, has his 25th Silver Jubilee as a bishop next month. And Reverend Mother thought it would be nice, apart from giving a donation to whatever funds, that we give him a gift. So she decided, as his cathedral is dedicated to St. George, I should make a plaque of St. George and the Dragon. So I started off by doing a pencil sketch, and from this I do it in clay, and then I make one of these red moulds and cast it in copper, cold cast copper. And this is just the first stage, but one must work in the clay first. One solves all the problems in the clay. When I came here, I never thought it was a small farm. There was just 8 of us. I never thought there would be any opportunity really much for it. But just over the years, suddenly the jobs started to come. And there's always been a steady stream, and we have no contacts, but they've just come in.
Well, now this is an example of the finished product. These are actually sort of miniature versions, aren't they?
Yes, they are. The first thing actually was this one, as a sketch model of St. Thomas More, and this I sent to the person that had wanted something large, and they liked it, so it was worked out about 3 feet. But as I had the mould, I got quite a few requests for them, and just 2 or 3 days ago 2 Canadian bishops were dropping in, and they happened to see Thomas More. One of them did, and he asked if I could possibly do 6, as he would like to take them home with him. He comes back to England one day next week, I think. There's a small community. There's 6 nationalities among 13 of us. There's German, Austrian, Romanian, English, Irish, Scotch. But because we've got this thing in common, it works out. We're all seeking the same thing. That's why we're here. That's what monasteries exist for.
While the nuns rarely leave the monastery, people do come to visit. Sightseers are welcome to look round the grounds, although at this time of year they're few and far between. This chap, however, comes fairly often. He's a regular customer at mealtimes. But in fact they do make proper provision for more formal guests at the Abbey, people who may want to come here just to get away from it all. And certainly for atmosphere, you'd have to look a long way to find one more relaxed and happy as this.